Hi guys, and welcome to the second episode of Wi-Fi Friends. I can't believe I got through all of that and then I'd at the end.
I was like, did he already I know we missed a week, but did
We
he already
did
forget the name of the show?
miss 1 week and I've already I don't know what we're doing. I'm like, who are you? Why are you on my Skype? What is happening right now?
Two though. We're getting there.
Most people would call two just like natural progression, but this is an achievement.
Yeah, this is like I deserve a gold star.
This is the first ever thing that we've ever made a sequel to, I think.
Most likely, probably.
Um But yeah, if you don't know, if you haven't listened, my name's Cameron. This is John. We talk about stuff. You'll get the gist. You'll get the gist. I don't know why I'm explaining it. John, how have you been recently? How have you been these 2 weeks?
I've been pretty good. It's been like off and on rain. That's just how Florida normally is,
Mm.
but we don't really get a fall, so I get a little bit of a sorry, a little bit of a cold, but it's all good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that a bit of rain is probably welcome right now, as opposed to what you had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It's just blistering heat or rain or hurricanes.
It's
That's Florida.
yeah, it's very much a biome state. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like you don't get like a flurry of weather. You get the weather that you're given.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, it's been interesting. I've had a very interesting day. I've been debating on whether to talk about, because what has been up with me, what I've been wanting to talk about in the WhatsApp section,
Yeah.
um, is a movie.
Ooh,
But it's a bigger deal than just a movie. So it's not. I didn't really feel like it constitute as my current favorite. So I'm going to
yeah.
talk about something different there. I just
Okay.
want to talk today when we're recording this. It's actually not anymore for me because the clock is ticked over to the next day. But technically, it's the 5th of October, 2017,
Yes.
which for anyone else in the world might just be the 5th of October. Maybe a couple of people is like, hey, that's my birthday. Or maybe that's
Yeah.
someone you love's birthday. Or
Wedding
maybe it's a
anniversary,
wedding anniversary.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah. But for a
It's a
lot of
weird day to get
people,
married, but
it's a normal
yeah.
day. Normal day. For me, this is a day that I've been dreading um, for
Oh.
quite some time. Um, because there was a movie that was slated to come out. I mean, slated. It did come out. There was a movie that came out today, and I knew it was coming out this date for a long time, and that was the sequel to Blade Runner.
Oh yeah, 2049.
Blade Runner 2049. This is a movie that I have been not looking forward to. Um,
I know
for
all the reviews have been like in the 90s, the Rotten Tomato meter or whatever. It's like everyone's
Yes,
saying this is the greatest thing they've ever seen.
exactly. Now I'll get to that, but so I just need to give some context. Blade Runner is my second favorite film of all time. Now, I don't want
I don't know what that
me
noise was.
saying, yeah, who knows? We'll just chalk it up as demons. I don't want me saying that it's my second favorite to underplay how much I love this movie. Like, it would be my first favorite if not for a movie being just a little bit more beloved. But I
The
do.
Green Lantern film.
Yes, it's the Green Lantern film. My number one is the Green Lantern film. It just beat out Blade Runner. Um, no, Lost in Trans. I'll talk about Lost in Translation probably millions of times in the future. But like Blade Runner,
Oh yeah.
I adore Blade Runner. I think it is a fantastic movie. It is so good, and it like shaped a lot of what I want to do with films and how I want to make films and stuff. But also just like it's one of those films where I will sit down and watch it no matter the day. There's never a day where I'm like, I'm not in a Blade Runner mood. I'm always down
Yeah.
to watch this movie because I just love it. I think that each frame is just so magnificent. So
Now there's an
today,
important question though. Which
yes.
cut are we talking about?
So I
The
only
final
started
cut?
watching it after the final cut was kind of popularized. So I've only ever seen the
Okay.
final cut. Um, I've kind of been scared to watch any of the other cuts because it's such. I mean, the final cut is the movie for me because it's the only one I've ever seen. So I don't want.
Yeah,
I
and everyone
feel,
says that it's a definitive like version of the film.
yeah, a lot of people. they like to compare them, and they like to say, there's pros and cons of each one. But I feel like most people fall down on the final cut being the definitive, which is always a good thing when the final one is the best.
Yeah.
Instead of them making you the best cut and then doing 6 more cuts that are inferior. But Blade Runner is, I just don't want to downplay how important this movie is to me. So when I heard they were making a sequel, my initial reaction, which I don't get this a lot, I'm not the type of guy that's like, don't make sequels. I like sequels because I'm able, for most things, I'm able to be like, if it was bad, it didn't exist. I can do that for a lot of things. Whereas I heard this news and nothing had been announced, no director, no cast. It was literally just Blade Runner is getting a sequel. And I just felt dread, and it just got worse and worse. And then I saw the posters and the trailers, and everyone was going, this looks good. But I was just like, why are they doing it? Why? And I just couldn't, in my head, justify why that movie needed a sequel. So for about a year now, I've just been not wanting this date to come. But I was like, I have to see it. I obviously have to see it. I can't not see it, because what if it's good? So I got back about 2 hours ago. I got about an hour ago, because I got back and I messaged you being like, do you want to do a podcast? Not only because I'd seen the film, but I also did want to do a podcast today. But like,
Yeah.
I needed to get this out, and like, it was such a surreal experience, because like, I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was a fucking phenomenal film. The sequel, now I'm talking about. I thought
Okay.
fucking great. I know I'm swearing a lot, but I was just very passionate. I thought it was great. I thought it was an amazing. I think everyone brought their A game. I thought it was just great. I thought the new direction, because it was like not shot like Blade Runner. It was very much this new director. It was his version of a Blade Runner movie. He wasn't trying to recreate the style that was put down in the first one. He didn't shoot it in neo-noir. He shot it in his version, which I respected, and I thought that's good, instead of like someone trying to copy Ridley Scott. But I still, and I feel like this is a character flaw. I came out of that movie and I was like, that movie is like one of my favorite movies now. That's easily like top 30 movies. I couldn't figure out how many to go. It's easily up there. Like, it's such a good film, and I really appreciated everything about that film I just saw. But I still could not justify them making a sequel. I was still like, they shouldn't have done it.
So even though it was really good, it's still one of those like, but did we need it?
Exactly. And I've been thinking about that. I haven't had a lot of time, obviously, because I just got out of the cinema like 2 hours ago maybe. But like, I think... And this is
It's funny, because that is actually going to go into my topic.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm very excited. But I just wanted to like, I think this is what it is. For people who are big fans of Blade Runner and who maybe feel the same or feel differently to me, or just want to know why I think. I'm not sure. I'll need to watch it again. I am going to watch it again. But right now, my thinking is that I was always down for a Blade Runner spin-off. Or something. I was always up for more stuff in that universe that had been created.
Yeah.
That huge world that Ridley Scott and he just creates this amazing world. And obviously the book, it goes credit to the book and the scriptwriter and everything like that. But the film as well, there's so much little things in the film that you look and you're like, there could be a whole story about that little thing in the corner. It's much like Star Wars in that aspect. So I was always down to revisit that universe, but that storyline and carrying it on as if it wasn't finished, that always felt weird to me. And what this film does is, majoritively, this film is a spin-off. The majority of this film, I think people would argue with me, and they probably have good points, but right now where I'm at, I feel like a lot of this film is a spin-off. It's not about... It's about the same themes, but it's not about the same characters, and it's not about the same story that was set up in the original movie. It's in the same world, but then at some point it has to become a sequel, because I guess they wanted it to be, or maybe that was the only way they got the film made. So it becomes a sequel to Blade Runner eventually in the movie. It's a long movie as well. And there was something about me that just kind of wanted it to stay this separate thing that was so good. It is still good, and the elements they bring in and they carry on from the original Blade Runner do work, I think. I have a little tiny bits of issues, but like, it felt like it was standing on its own 2 feet so well, and it was there and it was standing up, and it's like, we are a movie in the Blade Runner universe, but we are working by ourselves. And then all of a sudden someone was like, yeah, but you also have to do this, you also have to include this character and this character. Again,
Yeah.
if you've seen any of the trailers or posters, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but just the off chance that no one knows.
Gonna
Like
be vague,
yeah,
just to spare.
the off chance that no one knows what is happening in this movie, in this sequel, and who is coming back and who's not coming back and stuff. Like, that's all the stuff that I feel like it stopped me from being like, did we need it kept me from going, did we need this? Because I think that it proved to me that Blade Runner can still be relevant. I just think that it was like, I don't know. I feel like if I was just a tiny bit less of a fan of Blade Runner, I would have been like, yeah, this movie's great. It's an amazing sequel. It's a great sequel, well deserved. But because I was just like, I don't know. You know what? Fuck it. You've seen the posters. I'm sorry. I just don't know if they should have brought Deckard back. That's the main thing. I just think that character, he's not a hero in the first movie. He doesn't even really get to redeem himself. He's a bad person. Again, that's a matter of opinion, but in my opinion, he's a bad person in the movie. And then he learns that he's wrong, but he doesn't get to redeem himself, and that's kind of something that I kind of love about the movie, is that you get the character who has lots of flaws. He's not just a flawed character; he is flawed to the max. Like, he's a bad person. And like the movie teaches you through his actions that he's a bad person. And then what's so satisfying about the end of the first Blade Runner is that you get to see him realize how wrong he is, all in this one huge sequence. And he's just so wrong, and he's just baffled by how terrible of a person he is. But he doesn't get to redeem himself. He just runs away. And I just thought it's such an interesting concept. And this movie goes, okay, well, let's see what he would do. Let's see what he did do when he ran away. And I was like, we didn't need that. I don't know. I still, though, I 100% recommend, if you're a Blade Runner fan, or if you've never even watched Blade Runner, I'd recommend watching both of them. We watched both of them in one day. We also watched the anime, which honestly, I was
gonna say, there are a whole bunch of like shorts that they made before 2049 that are kind of like prequel.
It's interesting.
Setting up.
I was a bit disappointed by the anime, honestly, because I was more. I had more faith in the anime because it was done by the guy who did Beat Bop, which is obviously it's massively inspired by Blade Runner.
Was it more of like a style versus substance kind of thing? Yeah,
the style of the anime was good, but my friend mentioned it was like it didn't seem as polished as Beat Bop either, or Samurai Champloo or something like that. It felt a bit like they had given him a deadline. They were like, the film's coming out in 2 months. You need to make an anime short, and he was like, oh god. So like, even though there's elements of the anime, there is like, sometimes in anime, I say sometimes, they do this a lot, where there's a still. It's a still image that someone has drawn, and it's amazing. It looks great, and they're just dragging it across the screen to give it motion. But there's not actual animation happening. It's just like, maybe it'll be like a crowd. They do that a lot with a crowd, where a crowd looks shocked, and the crowd isn't actually moving. It's just moving the image of the crowd, so it gives the illusion of animation. There are
it's moving the camera.
That's a better way to describe it. There are a lot of shots in this movie. Let's talk about the anime now. Which is Blackout 2020, I think it's called. 2022?
2020?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of shots in this movie, of this anime, that look stunning as images, but as an animation, I felt like it was a bit rushed. But it is interesting how much it impacts the sequel, though. There is a lot of stuff in the anime, even though it's only 15 minutes long. There's a lot of stuff in the anime that then pays off in the movie. So it is cool how much it's not this like weird thing that is just outside. It's like, it's very much tied into the sequel. So it's cool to watch the anime and then watch the movie like we did, but you don't need to. And I just kind of felt a bit bummed that they got such a good director in to do an anime where it felt like they rushed him and pushed it out.
Yeah.
But I kind of took up a lot of time just because it's just fresh on my mind, and I just wanted to say, like, if there's anyone else out there, I want to talk and I want to watch this movie again and again, because like, it's such a weird thing to be like, not want a movie to happen, but then when it does happen, be so amazed by it.
That's basically going to be like me with a lot of these Star Wars films.
I guess that's a good comparison. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I
Like
think
I don't need a Han Solo film,
yeah.
but depending on the quality of it, I might go in going, "Oh, well, that was really good," but I still don't didn't need it. I don't want it. Like,
Yeah, that is actually quite a good comparison, but that's in. I think that's interesting because that's in reverse,
yeah,
which is also can happen a
which is
lot.
also going into your topic
Yes,
too.
it is. I think
Ah,
this is interesting. I've got it all tied up, but yeah. So that's
yeah,
that's kind of what's been niggling
going
at
on.
my like head and then making me want to kind of get it out. Is there anything that before we go into the favorites like that you want to get out and anything that you've been thinking about recently? It doesn't have to be with regards to movies or anything like that.
Not really. Fun fact though,
Okay.
never seen the Blade Runner.
That is that is a genuine fun fact because that means you get to watch Blade Runner for the first time
I
at
know.
some
I've
point.
never seen it. I've seen scenes. I've seen the end scene with
Yes.
the famous, quote, the tears
Mm, mm.
in the rain or whatever it is.
The
Yeah.
Roy Batty's all
Yes. His
those
famous
and more
monologue.
will be lost like tears in rain.
Yeah, I've seen that,
Um,
but I haven't seen like the full film
yeah,
of
I
itself,
I
which
will say a lot of people go into Blade Runner, and we watched Blade Runner 1 today with a lot of people who hadn't seen it because they wanted to come see the sequel, but obviously didn't want
yeah.
to go in without watching the first one. I warn people every time they watch Blade Runner, people don't talk about how uncomfortable the movie is a lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go in and they go, all right, we know this isn't Star Wars. We know it's slow and it's more methodical. But what people don't mention is like it's an uncomfortable movie and the Deckard is not a nice person. I'm not spoiling it. Well, maybe I am, but like the movie, it tricks you into thinking Deckard is like a good guy because he's the main character and he's Harrison Ford. So you just assume that he's like this kind of like, you
This
know,
noble,
yeah, he's
but
like a
he's very much like
bit of an ass, like Han
you said
Solo.
it's like neo noir, right?
Yeah, so he's
So it
flawed.
is very much like those old,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
Cagney, Bogart, like
yeah. It's like, but it's like it's he's uncomfortably bad, and there's a scene in particular which I never want to ruin for people because it's very much it's supposed to shock you, but just don't go in being like, oh, this is gonna make me feel fun and
yeah,
make me feel good. Like it challenges viewers a lot, especially because it was made in the 80s as well, where you know this scene that I think is really quite hard to watch maybe wasn't as hard to watch in the 80s, so it's not played as like as you would shoot it today, where you would go, listen,
yeah,
we know this is messed up. It's kind of played in a way, it's like, we know this is messed up, but we're also not gonna allude to the fact that it's messed up. It's just, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm preambling now, but yes, I'd
Okay.
recommend watching Blade Runner. Just be prepared, it's not Star Wars.
It's not Star Wars. That's probably the
Yeah.
most Blade Runner, the thing you could say about Blade Runner. It's not
Yeah,
Star Wars.
yeah. I think a lot
Um,
of people they go Harrison Ford. This will be fun.
yeah. Speaking of things that are uncomfortable, I don't
Okay.
know if that's a good segue or not. So I went Cameron Morris.
Yes, Jonathan
If I'm
Webster.
lying, I'm dying.
Oh my gosh.
I went to the GameStop. You
You
know, the little
what?
video games
Oh, I see what you mean.
store.
Yes, yes,
I
yes,
had a
yes,
couple
yes.
of games. I had the Guardians of Altair series. Yes, it's called a GameStop.
Okay.
Like an EB Games. I don't
Yeah,
know what the
yeah, yeah,
European
yeah.
version.
I think
Yeah,
we
yeah.
call it game. I think it is.
Oh, okay. So I grabbed my Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale series that
Nice.
I started and realized I didn't want to play.
Okay. Fair enough.
I grabbed Final Fantasy 15 because I finally got burnt out on it. I
Okay.
was just like, I just can't do it anymore. I love these boys. I love their little road trip. I don't love the battle system. The
Oh
story
my
doesn't really make a
god.
lot of
It
sense.
took me out of it, dude.
Yeah, it took me so out of it. Like I love the characters,
Mm.
but I don't like everything else.
It's like I love John Hughes movies. I pretty much love them all. But there are some John
Yeah,
Hughes movies where I love the characters, but I don't care about the plot. It's like if I had to
ex-
watch one of those movies for 50 hours.
yeah.
Like you just
So I
eventually the characters you're just like it's not enough.
took all those games. I traded them in.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of money on a card. I
Oof.
saw Batman Arkham Knight for $5.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Bought it because I haven't played it.
Mm.
Put it in. Started playing it.
Yeah.
Took it out. Put Witcher back in. and I'm just back in the land of the Witcher Wild Hunt. And God, is that game so good. It is so good,
Have we have we,
Cameron.
have we transitioned into current faves right now?
This is my current
Okay,
fave.
okay.
Witcher Wild Hunt. I love the world of The Witcher. I love how it takes these mature themes and it
Mm.
presents them and like, and I mean, there's a quest where I'm hunting like this demonized version of like this like dead baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it for shock value. It's actually a very
Yeah.
emotional scene. It takes all these like mature themes. Like I'm not super far into the game yet.
Mm.
You know, I'm only like level 8, which I
Okay.
don't know if that,
Okay.
yeah. But it takes a long time to gain levels in The Witcher.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
basically have to do story quests, and like those one side quest can go like 30 minutes later to an hour later. You're still doing the same side quest. It like morphs and changes. Um,
I think it's
so good.
it's really interesting that you bring this up actually, because um, everyone in my life has been constantly hounds me to play The Witcher Wild Hunt or Witcher 3, whatever you want to call it. Um,
Yeah. Witcher 3, yeah.
yeah, and I keep I keep I keep booting it up. And like I'm not deleting my save. I keep playing the same, so I'm progressing very slowly. But
Yeah.
every time I play it, I get into these situations and I get completely overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you can do, and by
It's so much.
I was riding around. I was right. I booted up. I'm going to tell you about my most recent experience because there's been a
Yeah.
bunch. This is my most recent, and then you can kind of compare where you are. I think I just arrived in this new place. It's after you get taken to the castle, and it's after they're like, you gotta find Ciri, and then you go to this new
Yeah.
place. So I'm in that new place, and I'm there, and I'm like, new place, awesome, let's explore. So I ride around, and I find this little quarry, and I'm like, oh, look at this quarry, this is cool. I get off my horse, I leave Roach, and I'm like, you're gonna be fine, Roach, don't worry, I'm just gonna check out this quarry.
Yeah.
Cut to 15 minutes later, there are what feels like, it's probably not, but what feels like 100 way higher level men just attacking me from all sides, and I'm like crying. I'm trying to fight them all off. I'm
So
using
if I
all my
remember
powers.
correctly, you're in Velen?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So that's where I'm in Velen right now.
Okay.
Also. But I did this whole one side quest or this one main quest that went on a while. I've like almost finished the Baron stuff.
I see. Okay.
The Baron stuff goes for a while.
I really enjoy that game, but it's like I have to be doing nothing else. Like I'm currently playing a Star Wars RPG, which is not. It's very low maintenance. There's not a lot of side quests. You can kind of like turn your mind off and just enjoy the story of it. But and that's fine by itself. But when you do The Witcher, you need to you can't play anything else. You have to be focusing, and you have to be like, this is what I'm doing in The Witcher, because like you like prepare, which is so cool, and like it's fun to do, and you're like, oiling up your swords and stuff. But like,
Yeah. It's like when you're watching, it reminds me a lot of Supernatural.
okay,
Because Supernatural, there's a lot of the boys, they go, they look at the crime scene, they research, they try to figure out what type of monster it is, then they get the tools they need to beat the monster.
Yeah.
That's literally what The Witcher is. You
Yeah.
go, you look at the bones, you look at all this stuff, you're like, all right, I'm dealing with a necrophage or some type of ghoul, or maybe I'm dealing with like a griffin or something. Okay, I need my bombs, I need my oils, maybe I need to go craft some stuff. You get all prepared, get your health, get all your stuff ready, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna go into battle.
It is true.
And it's just, it really like, a lot of games are like, we want to put you in their shoes.
Yeah.
But I feel like a Witcher when I'm playing that game. Like I feel powerful even when I'm fighting guys that are higher level than me. I'm like, all right, if I dodge, if I kind of like get my hits in when I can, like I'm really strategically thinking about like, I'm like, all right, let me switch signs. Okay, now I'm gonna do Ard for a little bit. Okay, now I'm gonna get my kin, I believe it's kin, the shield, like all this stuff. I'm thinking about the skill tree, which before like when I'd use a skill tree in a video game, I'm just like, all right, just maxing everything out. But you can't do that because you get skill points so far in between.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, I'm going to waste this one. What am I putting it on? What am I going to do?
It's nuanced as well. It's not just like in a lot of other video games, like I mentioned Star Wars, like I was playing that game and I was like, listen, I just want to be a Jedi, so I'm just putting all of my skill points into the Force, and I have a bunch of Force abilities, and I won't even need to touch them. I'll just force them all, and like it works in games like that because it just you buff your character in one branch of the skill tree. Whereas The Witcher, you need to be figuring out what works with what, and you need to be figuring out like, yeah, maybe if I buff this part, I'll be able to destroy all the humans. But when I come up against a demon, I'm gonna have nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really great. Geralt and Ciri, I love these characters, and I'm really like invested in there. But it's one of those games that I'm like, all right, let me turn on a podcast and let me just like go for a couple hours, just get lost in the world and do like all these random things.
I think it's such a. I need to try that actually, because I tried to play it without listening to stuff because there's so much dialogue and so much story in it. Even the side missions have like these huge dialogue trees. But I think
I've just been like having the subtitles on, and I'm like, all right, if I just have something that like I can kind of like not focus on fully, but like still be exactly.
I think it's good. It's such a great game as well to like. But the thing is it makes, like you said, like very much what you said. It makes you feel like a Witcher. You feel strong. You feel like, oh, I'm Geralt of Rivia. I'm doing this. And then what happens is you come across something, and because you feel so good and you've been doing so well, you're like, I don't need to prepare for this fight. It'll be fine. and then
you're like, oh, wait a minute. The only reason I got this far is because I was preparing.
Yeah, and like you can beat things without preparing. Like you said, like if you pay attention, you dodge, you duck, you roll, like you like use.
But it's gonna take like a fight that could have maybe gone 5 to 10 minutes will go to 30 minutes because you were just like us fighting this werewolf, and literally my save was right at the start of it, and I was just like, crap, I didn't prepare for any of this, and I'm just stuck in the cycle of this fight. So now I just have to get through it. So I'm like, I died multiple times, and I'm just like, all right, okay. Slow it down.
I think
just didn't go crazy. I just want to Devil May Cry everything.
Devil May Cry.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry, I thought you were gonna go.
No, I think there was just a bit of an audio skip because like you were talking and then you went silent and then you went Devil May Cry. I was like, oh god.
But yeah. I'm just gonna slow it down and just take it easy, and I eventually beat him.
It does the thing as well because you feel so good, Dan. I remember it was just like a simple witch. I was passing a graveyard. It was early on in the game. I was passing a graveyard, and there was a witch in the graveyard, and I was like, "Look at this witch! I'm gonna solve this. I'm gonna make this graveyard so that all these people can come back and they can visit their loved ones' graves without dealing with this witch being a meanie." So I got off Roach and I walked up to her.
Can we just talk about how dumb Roach is? I love Roach to death, but Roach is a stupid horse.
He's a very stupid horse. He
just runs into trees and stays there, and I'm like, Roach, you big dork.
I've started trying to park him places that horses shouldn't park. Like, I'll park him on fences and he's just levitating above the air and stuff. Do you park a horse? That's such a weird thing to say.
I guess so. Yeah.
But like,
park a horse.
I just got off Roach and I was like, this witch, I'll just take it down. It'll be easy. Cut to 40 minutes later. Horribly hard fight. Took ages. Yeah. But when you do it, you're like, yes, I beat the witch.
You feel like Piccolo.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you feel like an anime character in the sense that you're just like, I did it.
Yes, I can do this. I can win. I love that clip. But yeah, so Witcher's my current fave. I have a White Wolf sticker on my computer.
Oh, nice.
Because the package came with a sticker, and it comes with this giant world map.
I can't remember.
Which I'm like,
I might have gotten that too, but I'm not sure. Was it like a special edition or just the normal one?
No, it just says, normal. Bonus content, detail, and stickers.
The thing that stood out to me was, like, I remember opening the game when I first got it, and the first thing I saw was like a note, and it was like, hi, we're the developers, we're CD Projekt Red, we made this game, thank you so much for buying it and supporting us. And I was like, dude, that's so cool.
It's so cool. And those guys, like, I've seen some interviews with them, they're super nice. Like, I forget which European country. Not
Norway?
Dutch. No, it's smaller.
Sweden?
Maybe
I
it's
don't
in the
know.
back of this case. I want to say Swedish.
It's out
I
there.
forget.
It's
I
it's
feel bad.
it's
I don't do
definitely
my research
European.
before we do this podcast.
No, we don't. We don't. We literally go, "Hey, man, have you got a topic? No. All right, let's record."
We'll figure it out. But yeah, that's Witcher's my current fave right now.
I think
That's
it's
all I
pretty
do to it.
deserved. That game is great. If like
Yeah,
I'm enjoying The Witcher, and I'm enjoying being able to play it over a long period of time and kind of come in and out of it, because it's such that game where you feel like every time you log in, it's a different adventure. You know, every time you
exactly.
log in, it's not like like compare it to, like you said, you traded in Final Fantasy. Like I'm really struggling with that game. I think I just gave up on it eventually and just went to Mass Effect. But
Yeah.
like,
It's like, oh, let me go hunt some more
yeah,
monsters, while this is like, let me go on an interesting side quest with characters that
yeah,
I'm gonna like care about or hate,
and
or
also
like some
like,
dudes that I'm like, you know what, I just want to murder. I run into this, so I run into this burned down building, right?
okay.
Okay, and there's these dudes, and they're like praying to this like fig tree.
Hmm.
I just walk up and I'm like, yo, guys, what's up? And they're like, dude, there's this plague on our village.
Okay.
There's a war right now, so we haven't been able to give good food to our god, and he's
Hmm.
mad. And I'm like, you know what? I'll figure this out. Why not? I'm here. So I use my Witcher sense, and I'm like, oh, there's a underground entrance.
Yeah.
So I go underneath, and there's this giant troll guy. I'm like, hey, so are you this god? He's like, yeah, I got stuck here one time, and then like I accidentally did something, and they could hear me, so they started thinking I'm this god. And I'm like, all right, bro, well, you got two options here. I either kill you right now, or you take the shitty food and eat it, because like they don't have the money or the crops right now to give you good food. And he's like, all right, I'll wait until after the war, but after the war I better get my good food back. And I'm like,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
And I just go back up there, and I'm like, hey guys, you should all be good now. By the way, you should go look around the back of the buildings sometime.
It is such that game though. I'm like,
And I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen with that family, the whole village later on, but like,
hmm.
I'm like, well, if I kill him, that doesn't mean the plague's gonna go away.
Yeah.
So I'll just convince him to keep, being nice to these people as long as he gets food. Like that's not that big a thing to ask.
Hmm. And it's so
And I'm like,
cool.
it's so weird. It's so many different ways to do things.
Yeah, and it feels like you said, like you log on, you come across that, you do all of that, right? Maybe it takes you like 10, 15 minutes, but like you
Yeah,
after that you're just like, dude, that was awesome. That was cool, and I feel like I did something, and there was a story and an arc, and like it paid off. Whereas like a game like Final Fantasy, you collecting frogs, you're like, I don't give a fucking shit about this.
yeah. I don't want to go fishing. I hate fishing.
I know, when they give it to the main character.
I'm like, that's his personality trait. Is he likes to fish?
Oh gosh, but like yeah, The Witcher is, I could not it's not my current fave, because like I said, I come in and out of it, but like I gotta
Yeah,
agree with you. Such a just diverse game, and such a
yeah,
fun game, and like I got the I would call it DLC even before I've even got anywhere close to being able to play them, just because I was like, I
oh,
know I'm gonna play it.
I know. I want to. So Cameron, what's your current fave?
Oh,
Like that
so
that professional transition.
yeah. Maybe I'll add like a tune where it's like do 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 John.
Do do
Uh,
do 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 do.
um. Okay, so I have two current faves. I have a mini one that I gotta mention, but I felt like I couldn't do another episode about a Star Wars book. Like, I can't do two episodes in a row, so I'll just mention that quickly, because that is technically my current fave, and then I'll mention something else that is
Okay.
also something I'm enjoying. First of all, I just want to mention, mate, I know I listen to too many Star Wars books. I'll probably bring these up again, but I'm just loving them. I'm enjoying them. So since last episode, I finished Phasma. I thought it was really good. I thought the last chapter was awesome. It's the last chapter, a little bit of spoilers, but like you kind of know what happens to Phasma if you've seen The Force Awakens. like,
Yeah.
but like the last chapter of the Phasma novel is a whole chapter dedicated to her constructing her chrome suit.
Oh, cool.
And it parallels the Darth Vader scene. Like it's so like it's like if Darth Vader wanted to be in the suit, you know. It's like a
Yeah.
cool where like Darth Vader, he's like burnt and he's like, oh, you got to save me. So they're like putting these pieces together and they put the breathing apparatus. It's like that, but if the person wanted to become a robot, you know, and wanted to become
Yeah.
this unhuman thing, so it really adds to a character and it's really good. But yeah, so I finished that. Then I listened to a book called Catalyst, which is a prequel to Rogue One.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's all about Galen and Orson and Lyra, and obviously Jin's in it as a little kid, but like it's mainly about those three, and also Tarkin features quite heavily in it. I didn't expect him
Oh,
to,
okay.
but like I was like, that's kind of cool. He's not as main as those three characters, but like again, great background for these characters. But Orson Krennic in this book, like it's so, they do stuff with him that just makes you appreciate the films way more, because like in the films he's kind of like running all over the place and he's trying to, you know, he's at his ends wits in the films, but you get this sense that he was important. He's got this cape and he's got, you know, he's got all these cool stormtroopers and stuff. So you read the book and you see how he manipulates people into doing what he wants, and how he gets someone like Galen Erso, like who seems like a really nice guy, to build this horrible super weapon. Like the way that he manipulates people and the way the writer gets you to kind of go, I don't know that if I would say no in that situation, you know, like it's really interesting how he builds this character. So then when you watch Rogue One and you see it like all falling apart for him, it's even more satisfying, because you're just like, this guy was such an evil guy through this whole, like not just in the movie, but like this whole backstory. And I just thought it was really well done. It starts quite slow and I couldn't get into it at the beginning, but as soon as you get the kind of rhythm of like, you see Orson behind the scenes, and then you see Galen, who's like obliviously just falling into all of Orson's traps and stuff. And it's quite interesting how they do it, in the sense that like you read the book and you really do go like, I can kind of see why people would be on board with building a giant Death Star, you know, like, because that was always quite weird to me that like everyone's just like, yeah, we'll have a Death Star and we'll call it the Death Star and it'll be this thing that blows up planets, and we're the good guys even though we've got a Death Star. But like it really does try to convince you that like, no, this is like a time where people were frantic and they just wanted peace by whatever means.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, but I'm sorry, I know I talk a lot about Star Wars. This is not going to be Star Wars.
What's the second one?
So the main one, the one I want to talk about, is Star Trek.
Oh,
You know?
oh,
I'm not a very diverse person.
you're very on brand.
Yes, I am. And this will be very relevant, I think, because I am currently watching the new season of Star Trek, which is interesting. Mainly, the thing that baffles me the most about it is that it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Which confused a lot of people and still continues to confuse people even after watching the show. Like, if you have all of this time, you have all these things and all this place to go, and you go back before Kirk. Like you go back, you limit yourself, so they haven't met a bunch of alien races. They haven't got a bunch of technology that they, you know, eventually do have, like holo projectors and stuff. But what I realized watching these first 3 episodes, that they're the only ones that are out yet, is that the reason they've done this is not because they wanted to go back and be like, oh, would it be cool if they didn't have all this stuff? Like, it's very much like, what would a Star Trek show look like if it was in the mists of war? Like, it's gone back to the war with the Klingons, which is obviously a big deal because, you know, the Klingons. But like, what you have is this crew that really is very different to any crew you've ever seen before, because like Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, and even Kirk, like they kind of all have these captains who are the moral compass of the show, who, even though they do go through arcs and they learn things, everyone kind of, and even you as the viewer, you look to them as this beacon, this like inhuman, like they always find the right thing to do. Yeah. So the captain is always kind of the main character, you know. There's never really a main character in Star Trek until this series, but you kind of always default on the captain because they are the figurehead. Like, it's this cool thing where, like, you know, a good captain will listen to their own crew, but ultimately it's their decision, and they can go against their entire crew, and the crew has to go with them, you know. So what you have in this series is a show that not only has a captain that is completely different because he's a war captain. He's not here to explore. He's not here to go, oh, we'll debate the niceties of you know, what life means and what constitutes as intelligence, and, you know, all these stuff that you would get in a Star Trek show with the captain. He doesn't have time for that because he's at war with the Klingons, and he wants the war to end. And, like, he's sinister, but to a point where you're like, no, I get it. Like, he wants to be one of those captains that has the pleasure of, like, discussing things with his crew and talking and being philosophical. That is not a word, but I made it up. But
philosophical?
Like, yeah, philosophical. There's the word. Thank you, John. That's what you hear.
I try my best.
But he doesn't have that pleasure because there's a war going on, and he just wants to end the war. And it trickles down to the whole crew. Like, you have, like, a security officer who, like, before, security officers in Star Trek, like, they were the ones that would, like, they were always, like, quick to shoot, and they were quick to, like, be like, we need to destroy them, we can't trust people, you know. That was kind of the security officer in most of the Star Trek shows, except for maybe, like, Voyager, because he was a Vulcan. But, like, the security officer in this, she just feels like another member of the crew because the whole crew are on edge. So, like, it allows them to develop that character a bit more. They haven't done much with it yet, but, like, it's just an interesting look, and I've really, like, come around on it because I'm like, I really didn't want them to make a prequel to this franchise because it's already had so many prequels already. Like, there was Enterprise, and then there was the J.J. Abrams movies, and I was like, why do another prequel? But they're really proving to me that you can do a prequel to a franchise and do something new with it. You know, even though we know the outcome of the war, we know how it goes, it's interesting to see that dynamic and to see how these things you wouldn't consider in a show. I kind of went on a bit of a rant, but I've really been surprised by the show. So I just wanted to say
I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I'm not going to pay for CBS All Access.
Oh yes, I forgot because you
I've
guys
already
don't get
got
it on Netflix.
We have to pay for it. Yep.
Oh.
So I haven't watched it because I already have enough streaming services that I pay for.
So we don't get CBS out here, so it just defaulted to Netflix. So we get it every week on Netflix, which is great because everyone pretty much has Netflix at this point.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what a non-Star Trek fan would think of it, because
I was gonna say, because I've seen, like, the movies, and I've watched, like, bits and pieces here and there of different shows. I've never been like, I'm gonna watch an entire series of Star Trek or season or whatever. I've just kind of here and there picked.
I think what's interesting about it is it might be the one to kind of start with, because not only is it the most modern, which usually means it's watchable, you don't have to get past, like, weird effects or anything, or stilted dialogue, but also, like, you know, Star Trek, and this kind of was solidified with the Next Generation. Other shows didn't adhere to this a lot, but a lot of them did, and this kind of became the mantra of Star Trek, which is meaning over plot. Like, if you have a solid meaning and you want to convey something with the episode, that would always take preference over having a solid plot. So a lot of times you'd have these hokey episodes that were, like, silly and fun, but the meaning was there, you know, and what they were trying to convey was there. Maybe they did it in a not so subtle way, but if you appreciated the meaning, you could see past the hokey plot. Whereas this series kind of, that takes a little bit of a back step because they want to get you sucked in. So the plot is kind of in the forefront right now, with like little bits of meaning in the background of being like, we're going to talk about philosophy and we're going to talk about these questions and stuff, but right now we want to get you into the characters. So it's a lot more character driven. It's a lot more this happens, then this happens, then this happens, as opposed to people sitting around being like, I wonder if Data is a human being. Like, you know? So I do think it's quite accessible to someone who hasn't seen Star Trek. I by no means think it's the best Star Trek show. I mean, it's only 3 episodes in, so it could be. But I think that it sacrifices too much meaning, in the sense that I feel like the show hasn't tried to ask me any questions yet.
Yeah, it's just kind of like
It's just kind of
taking you
going.
on a journey.
Yeah, which is fine, which is completely fine, and I'm up for it, because there's so many. It's not like this is the only Star Trek we'll get for the next 100 years. Like, there's gonna be.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I recommend watching that. So I'm enjoying that right now, and I'm enjoying having it on Netflix. So I apologize to all our American viewers. But yeah, and that kind of leads me into, if you don't mind me taking the topic first.
Oh no, mine works as a companion sequel.
Oh,
to yours.
interesting.
So,
Because of Star Trek, and also because I've been reading Catalyst as well, which has really opened my mind. I was thinking about, like, a lot of times we'll be like, no, don't do a prequel. Like, we don't care. Like, for example, a great example that I agree with you. As much as I'm a Star Wars fan, do we need to know about Han Solo? Not really.
Yeah.
We know he's a smuggler. He can't have done much before, meeting a Jedi that was more interesting.
Yeah, right. Like the whole thing is like the Kessel Run is going to be in it, supposedly. But I don't need to see. And that's so. I'm gonna hop right in there. Hop right into the deep water right now. My main issue, 9 times out of 10 with prequels, is that they take an idea that was interesting because of the mystery,
yes,
and then expound upon it. 9 times out of 10, that's like the Star Wars prequels. Not to make this a Star Wars podcast, but they took the Obi-Wan and Anakin relationship, how Anakin became Darth Vader, that mystery, and then just said, "Hey, let's tell everybody," and then it didn't. And that's like there are a whole number of reasons why it didn't live up to maybe expectations, but I think that prequels can be done well.
I agree, and I wanted to talk about today what series or what franchises, I guess, is the best way to put it. And a franchise can be one movie, like it can be just a single movie. But like, what franchises do you think maybe deserve, or you could think of an interesting idea for a prequel? You don't necessarily have to have an idea. You can just be like, this deserves a prequel. But I'm just thinking about prequels and like, where do we see them as, yes, this is a movie that could benefit from a prequel?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
It's a very
because
I'm trying to think. A lot of the things that I watch have the tendency to explain something like in the beginning of the film. The credits, the opening credits, are maybe like the prequel.
I see what you mean. Yeah, like the Rogue One thing, where the movie is the opening credits to the next film.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think that the thing to think about for me was like you said, you want to take a movie that has some sort of backwards potential, so like I think the problem with the Han Solo prequel for me, and again, it might be a great movie, we already said that, but like but the thing is that doesn't interest me is like I said, Han Solo doesn't seem like he's had something super interesting happen to him that warrants a movie when we meet him. It feels like he's kind of been going along. He's obviously had these, scuffles, and we like Lando is more interesting to me because Lando feels like he's like had this whole story that's gone parallel to Star Wars. But like Han Solo himself, he's just kind of, he's bobbed around, and now this is here, and this is where he takes his stand. This is where he becomes the character that, that he does over those 3 films. He has his arc, and then in the 4th film, he completes his arc. So I think that's an awkward place, because you don't want to put a prequel there where there's nothing, there's no ground, there's nothing to chew at. But also, like you said, there are some things where the what had happened gets explained so much that you can't really add anything to it. Like, there's a Game of Thrones prequel. Now, I'm not a Game of Thrones fan. I haven't watched the show. I haven't read the books. But my friends that watch it, they're like, they don't understand why they're going to make... because there's this whole war that happened before the series, and they're making a TV show about the war. And all my friends are like, they keep telling us in the show and in the books, what happened in the war and the outcomes of things that happened in the war and everything that the war affected, and we pretty much know everything. Why then would you need a show about that? Because it's like, in the main source material, we know everything. We have that point of reference. there are no arcs for those characters that haven't been explored in flashbacks or speeches and stuff. I feel like. Do you want me to go first? Because I kind of have something. If you want to think about
Yeah,
it.
I finally figured out my answer, but
Okay.
it'll give me more time to think about it, so you
Yeah.
can go.
I I feel like I love putting themes on these podcasts, and I apologize if it annoys people, but like one that I've always thought could be interesting is a Blade Runner prequel. Because as much as I was like, no sequel, I don't want to see a sequel, it's because that film is very much a definitive end for every character, I feel. There's one character maybe in Blade Runner, maybe that I feel story could have advanced and does in the sequel, but I think for the most part all the characters in Blade Runner, they have their ending. There is, however, potential for looking back at their life and looking back at what led them to this point. And I think that the character of Roy Batty, which isn't going to make a lot of sense if you haven't seen Blade Runner, but that's fine, I'm going to explain it. Roy Batty is the main antagonist, I guess you could call him. Although I would argue that he's more of a protagonist than an antagonist.
Yeah.
In Blade Runner, he is basically this guy that he was a synth, whatever you want to call them, skin job. Like there's a bunch of replicant is obviously the official name in Blade Runner, but there's many, lots of different. He's an artificial human with enhanced strength and stuff, who is created to be a slave. And he was created specifically, like they say in the movie, that he was created with no personality. And there was something that happened along the line of this model of replicant, the Nexus 6. At some point, they started to develop a personality. They don't know why, but they just started to develop a personality. And because of that, they only put a 4-year lifespan on them, so they'll only live for 4 years and then they'll die before their personality, I guess, becomes a problem. Tyrell aren't a great corporation. They're not very nice. They create slaves.
Yeah.
So you have this character that is in Blade Runner is already very defined in who he is. He has his purpose. He has what he needs. He has what he wants, and he has a character in the sense of a very defined, you can see who he is. So even though he has an arc in the movie, it's less about him becoming a different person, and it's more about him like trying to overcome obstacles, for whatever reason, not being able to overcome these obstacles, and then how he reacts to failure, whereas a lot of characters, you see them grow and you see them become the character that they are, like we mentioned Han Solo. I feel like it would be so interesting to see how this person who was born 4 years before Blade Runner as a slave, who had no personality, developed his personality and got to being so confident as to where he is at the beginning of Blade Runner, where he knows what he wants and he's going to get it no matter what. And there's that aspect which really interests me, but there's also, like we mentioned before, his speech at the end of the film. He starts spouting out all these things that he's done, because the whole point is like he's seen all these things and he's the only person who has the memories of those, and they're going to be lost. And he's like, that's such a tragedy that I never got to tell people about it, or I never got to write it down or make art about it, I just think it would be so fantastic to maybe explore like a little bit of maybe what he's talking about. Like he talks about seeing attack ships exploding and rings and all this stuff in space, and you never get to go to space in either Blade Runner movie. So I just think there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of stuff that isn't over-explained. It's alluded to, which means you can have plot, and you also have this end point for the character, but we have no idea how he gets there. And there's also like Blade Runner almost asks you to fill in the blanks,
Yeah.
It goes. Well, this guy is so himself right now, but they also say that he started out, a drone. So how do people get here? I just think, for me, and I mean, obviously it was inspired because Blade Runner is a big thing right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that is kind of how I would do it. I would look for something where there's potential, but not so much description that it's all over the place,
Yeah, no, something that's not like, oh, hey, we're just going to retell what we've already told you.
like
but
the
like,
Castle Run.
Yeah, like the Kessel Run, which we know. Unless it's going to be like, oh, Han's been lying the entire time or whatever. I don't know.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So my pick. Have you been watching My Hero Academia?
I've not. I've I
You need
really gotta check out that because a lot of people have been recommending it.
you need to.
Okay.
I am telling you, you have to watch it.
Okay, I'll come back with
But
some episodes viewed
yeah,
before the
I'll
next
watch Blade
episode.
Runner. You'll watch My Hero Academia.
Okay, we'll do an exchange.
Yeah, but my answer is All Might. So All Might is the Superman figure of My Hero Academia.
Oh, interesting.
He
I
is the
see.
beacon of hope and light that everyone looks up to.
Mm,
And it's a big discussion in the TV show about being a symbol and what that means and
mm,
what that kind of takes mentally, physically, and the kind of like harsh questions that we ask of like, if you want to be this symbol, this is what you need to do.
mm.
And, it kind of asks a lot about like what it means to be a symbol and how much that weight can kind of carry.
Yeah, and how much you have
And,
to kind of
and
not be a person.
exactly. And
Yeah.
you get information here and there slowly about
Mm,
like when he was a young hero, about this like evil menace that he fought
okay.
and his mentor. And I would just love to just get a series or a movie or whatever, just exploring that relationship between his mentor, between this
Mm.
person that he obviously looked up to and made him believe in himself that he could be the next symbol.
Yeah, like the symbol. I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Like
and so
I
yeah,
kind of
because
think
it
of Superman. Is is obviously he's looked at as very much as that symbol, and a lot of criticism is like, well, where was his? Where did he get his power from? Where did he get his inspiration from? So I think
yeah,
that's a
and
good. Sorry, carry
they
on.
allude to a lot of stuff. Sorry, no, they allude to a lot of stuff, and they do explain a lot.
Okay.
Um, but it's to that point where it's like they explain and they allude to, and obviously the series is still going, so
Mm.
we don't know if they'll give us more, if they will do flashbacks.
Yeah.
But we've only seen snippets of the mentor, and I'd love to
Yeah.
follow that person as the focal point of like, let's follow this person, let's have All Might as the sidekick who's there, but really follow his teacher
Mm.
and see like her story and how she got to where she is, because she really is more of a, right now at least, she's still a mystery.
Mm.
We know of her and we know that she's a very important part in the whole overarching story, but we don't know a whole lot about her personal background and everything. I'm sure we'll get more information, but I just think that that'd be a great thing for like a movie, just to kind of wet our whistle a little bit.
Yeah, and I really like that. I think there's a common thing with both answers where it's this idea of taking a character that was that was very much done, I guess.
Fully fleshed out
Yeah,
by
there
the
was
time we saw them.
yeah, so and finding out how they got to that point. I like the anime spin though because a lot of animes they have been able to do this within the anime. So they've done kind of like a prequel anime within the anime. I remember the one that stands out to me, probably just because it's the most popular, is the Naruto kind of thing,
Yeah.
where Naruto just stopped being a show about him for about, I think it was like 10 episodes, and was 10 episodes of his dad. And it was just
Yeah.
an origin story of his dad. It was a prequel to the series, and it was played very much like a prequel, like it had a beginning, middle, and end, and it was a full arc. And I think that animes have really they've kind of carved out their own way of doing things, and I really like that because you can kind of get these prequels. Like maybe that's even where academia is going to take you. It's going to be like, now we're going to learn about this, this character, the mentor.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
when,
oh, now you're injured, and now like I'm gonna sit down and we're just gonna
yeah,
talk.
yeah. And I think it's kind of an
Which those are
interesting
some of my
thing.
favorite scenes.
Yeah, and I like learning things along with the protagonist. I like being in their shoes and being like, oh shit, I'm finding out as they're finding
Yeah.
out. It's kind of going on the journey with them.
Oh, and it's been great because it has been um, one of my favorite things that the show does is that it's like, all right, this arc we have this character, and they're gonna be the main heroes, kind of like secondary.
Yeah.
Like they're for some reason this arc, this guy's hanging out with this guy a lot recently, and they go on a fight together, and that guy gets to show his stuff and like really, and we get flashbacks during this like intense battle of him as a child. They did
Yeah.
it with Kirishima. I know you don't know who the character is, but
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
he's a red-haired character, and he can like turn his body into like unbreakable. He's kind of like Edward, which is funny.
Oh, okay.
from The Monogamous Adventures of Edward and Pepper, my
Oh,
comic book that
my
I read.
favorite mainstream comic book everyone should read.
Yeah, but and they show his background and why he's like this kind of energetic, excited guy, and like how he looked up to this other hero.
Yeah.
And I love when anime does stuff like that, when they take secondary and side characters and they're like, hey, now they're your favorite character.
Yeah. This is also totally not a plug. Like, I just thought this was interesting and I wanted to bring this up. Like, you can tell that within your writing, in the sense that, like, even though you write what is technically a Western comic book, there is very much that sense of, like, you have characters in it that are clearly have gone through stuff, but in the comic, the way you present it is like, this is them after the stuff, and now we're going to go backwards and figure out why that is, and I don't want to spoil future comics, but, like, like, I think that's interesting that that's had such a profound effect on how you write as well. And I think that's
because I
cool.
got into that medium through manga and anime. Like, I read like the Sonic the Hedgehog comics, but like I really didn't get into Western comics until Jeff John Leonard. Before that, I was reading Rurouni Kenshin, Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, like all of these things that like really informed how I view storytelling and how I want to tell stories.
And it is very much like, they love the prequel stuff in anime, and I think it's pretty good most of the time. Well, again, it's my friend has a quote where he's like, I adore anime. It's just a shame that 95% of it is trash. Like, there's a lot of bad anime.
It's like Max Landis' quote about wrestling. He's like, 60% of it is bad, but 40% of it is amazing and the best thing you will ever watch.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think that it was an interesting topic. I like that we kind of came down on the same kind of playing field, I guess.
Yeah,
Is
we
that
were
an
very much on
analogy?
the same
That was a weird analogy.
Yeah, we're in the same playing level.
Ball field. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
America.
whatever the kids say.
What,
so my topic piggybacks off of yours.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, how do I get through this? I brought up Supernatural earlier.
Yes, you did.
And I was talking to someone today, and I was talking about how the first 5 seasons of Supernatural are such a full, complete story.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful tale of 2 brothers, and it from literally the first things that happened in the first episode relate and come full circle in the last episode of season 5.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
And then it continued.
Yes.
So my thing is, I don't know if it's really like a definitive question, but it's more so like, do things maybe need a definitive end? Is it good to watch something and have a definitive end in sight instead of just, hey, people like it, so let's keep on doing it?
I love,
like, I guess the pros and cons of like having a short form series.
I love how circular these episodes are and how they're so unintentionally on brand.
Yeah.
Like I opened this episode talking about how I didn't think Blade Runner needed a sequel, and you've somehow brought it all the way back.
Because it's funny because I didn't tell you what my topic was.
Yeah,
everyone needs to know. I knew Cameron's topic. But he didn't know mine because I made it up after he told me his topic.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a topic. I was actually going to talk about something completely different until he sent his topic. And I was like, oh, no, there is something I want to talk about.
This is interesting, actually. I think that, oh, gosh, that is something that is very prevalent. And like we were just talking about anime, like we praised anime, but one of the major issues with a lot of Shogun anime is like, when does it end? Like, when I have a friend that loves One Piece, adores One Piece more than even you and I maybe do. Like, he has all figures and posters and stuff, but he just stopped reading because he was like, I'm just sick of it not ending. I'm sick of not having that conclusion. Like,
when does he become the Pirate King? The King of the Pirates? When does it happen?
Or doesn't. Either way, just end.
Yeah.
Like, just have a. I'm gonna have to give this a big old think.
So at first I was a huge fan of, Western comics, they never end. Hal Jordan's Green Lantern again, Bruce Wayne is Batman. You have these stories, but then as I started reading, I started finding these stories like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern.
Mm.
And I read it, and I was like, man, this is a definitive end. And then they keep on going.
Yeah.
And so I've really started to appreciate short form.
Mm.
They're like, hey, we have 12 issues. And you read it, and you're like, that was a perfect story. It had a beginning, had an end. Do I want more? Yes, but this is a story they wanted to tell. And I don't know, I feel narrative fulfillment, which is something that's very hard to do a lot of times.
Yeah.
Of like, you're watching something or you're reading something, and you get to a point where it's like, oh, this is perfect. The characters are kind of like full circle again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then the circle just kind of turns into like a squiggly line.
I very much, I think I do. I see what you're coming from, because like there's this thing where how you approach a story, and how you approach what you want out of a story is different from person to person, and it's probably different in some levels to every single person. But the best way I could describe like how I really do appreciate a story, it doesn't have to be like this. I can like a story, but like my favorite movies, my favorite comic books, my favorite, anything, even albums, they approach it like this, in the sense that I see it as like a conspiracy theory board. It's like a cork board, and it's got all these plot points and all these characters and all these locations and just pretty much everything, all the music, the dialogue, literally anything that goes into a piece of art. And I'll just talk about a film, or TV show is better actually, because we talk about like it keeps going and keeps going. Perfectly for me is when they have all of these things, all of these elements that go into this TV show, and it's all on a conspiracy corkboard, and they've all got pins in them, and there's this rope that goes from one thing to the other, 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 and they're all serving each other, if you know what I mean. And I think that you can only do that if you have an end in sight. You can only do something like that. You can only craft something where everything from the first scene to the last scene is connected and is intentionally serving an end. Like for example, I'll mention this because I feel like I feel like she doesn't get enough credit, because people write their books off and they go, oh, the Harry Potter, they were for kids, they were enjoyable and stuff, and people love them. But like the stuff that, just talking about the books specifically, J.K. Rowling, she had an idea for the first book, and she immediately knew, I need to know what happens in the end, and I need to write a synopsis for the last book before I write the rest, because she understood that like a satisfying story, everything from the beginning pays off at the end, and everything at the end is connected to the beginning, And I think that like, if you don't have for another example, a bad example, I think, is like, I enjoy the show The Flash. I really enjoy The Flash. I think it's got a great writing staff. I think it's got great cast of characters, and the actors really put their part in, and it's fun. But what is so evident about that show is let's just keep going, just keep running, running. Let's just keep going and going and going. And we never think about the next season until the cliffhanger. We never think about the next season. And maybe they do. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. But to me, it really does feel like nothing is ever like, oh, dude, that's like that thing in season 1, and that's bringing it back, and not in like a bringing it back like the characters back. I mean like a thematic change. There's a thematic resonance, I guess is the word to put. So I think if I was to, if I know you said it was more of a loose answer, but like if I was to give my example of what not to do, it would definitely be like something like The Flash, where there's so much potential and they tell these amazing stories, but ultimately everything has to, I think one of the things you lose when you don't have an end in sight is everything has to revert back to status quo, because if it doesn't, you can't keep going, and it's really
that's
frustrating.
It's funny talking about Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I already know my ending for that show.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I already know how that show ends, and it better end this way, or else it's not going to have, to me, a fulfilling narrative moment. because Heatwave keeps on mentioning he wants to go to Tahiti. I think it's Tahiti.
Mm.
Um, and like at the end of season 2, they were like, "All right, guys, we're finally doing it. We're finally going," because they just went through this horrible ordeal. And then like something happens, they don't get there. But the end of that show needs to be them on a beach, a couple of beers, and just that's it.
Yeah.
Because that would be a perfect, fulfilling, like, they finally got there.
Mm.
They finally have time to rest. They've done their job. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's give them what they want. And that's to be on that beach
yeah,
with each other.
it
And so
really, and
it's,
it gives you as a viewer, you feel then what I feel like is nice. And it's kind of awkward to say, but it's nice to think that everything that was shown to you was handpicked as to be very important. Like
exactly.
going back to the Blade Runner, why I think that's such an amazing, complete movie with like a beginning, middle, and end, and it's so contained and it you digest it as one big thing, is because there is not a shot in that movie that I can make any sort of argument as to take out. There's like, I'll give you an example. There's a scene in the movie where two characters are on the side of the street and they're talking and they're just chatting, and it's very important to the plot. The plot. Like one of them
Yeah.
is like, guy one is plot. Guy two is plot. Then they both walk out off. They walk like deeper into the shot, I guess you would describe it. They walk, further away from the camera, and they enter a room. And instead of cutting to inside the room, which eventually does happen, the camera first it wheels away, so it's coming away from the side of the street, and it almost veers into the middle of the road. And as it does this parade of of people on bicycles, just they start riding past the camera, and it creates this like it broadens your like kind of opinions of the world that is creating, and the city, and the type of place that we exist in this film. And like, as it doesn't last too long and it doesn't last too short, it just kind of comes out and you see this parade of bicycles coming past you, and there's all these people on them, and none of them are main characters, none of them mean anything to the plot, but it does such a good job of setting up the world that at the end of the movie, when it's coming back and you're seeing all these things and you're gestating everything that happened in the movie, you think of scenes like that, and you think of all these people that are just in this city and having to deal with the stuff from day to day. And like, you cannot do something like that if you don't know where you're going. And I think it's something that especially anime and manga and so much do modern like comic books like DC and Marvel specifically, they suffer with, because you just feel like you're never going to get any resolution. Unless Jeff Johns goes, no, I don't care if it's not canon, I'm forcing an end to Green Lantern. He literally forced an ending to that series and then was like, yeah, carry on, but everyone knows how it ended.
Exactly. And like a show that I just recently finished, Dark Gently.
Okay, I've never heard of that, I don't think.
So Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. It's on BBC.
Oh my god, yes, I've seen this on. I think it came up on Netflix.
It's
I have to watch it.
Good. It's amazing,
Okay.
and it has that thing like you said, where everything you see is pertinent and important, to where every little frame that you see is information that was hand curated for you to see and pick up on and to keep with you. And then once you get to the end, you go, oh, so that's why that was there, and that's why this was over. And it's like this, literally, like, you get through the first episode, you're like, what the heck am I watching? And then you get like 3 or 4 episodes in it, and you start saying something in normal conversation that you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm at this point. And I feel like this is a normal thing to say out loud, but yeah, that's what's going on. And like, because me and my wife watched it and she fell in love with it too. And some of those things, that even the stinger at the end for the second season, that sets up the second season, is like, yeah, even though it's one of those and it keeps going, but it's like, oh, but that was still set up earlier in the show, so it makes sense for them to go that direction.
Yeah, and you can do that. Like, I'm not saying you can't do season 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I think a show that does this, like you just said with Dirk Gently, but like, for me, like shows that I've seen, BoJack Horseman, which is a fantastic show by itself, but this is a show that knows, I think, anyway, you can never know this for sure, but I think it knows where it wants to end. And that doesn't mean that they're just going to do one season. It means they're going to push it. But like each season feels like a continuous story. It feels like it's
exactly.
it's taking in everything. And there are things that are set. Like there is a character that is introduced in the first season, right? So BoJack, you're like, oh, this is BoJack. And very early on, you meet his mother. She's not a big part of season 1. You just meet her, and you're like, this is BoJack's mother. Keep in your mind, this is BoJack's mother. This is who she's voiced by. You know, it's a distinct voice. This is what she's like. This is the type of person she is. And now let's move on with the series. And then you go season 1, she's not important. Season 2, she's not important. Season 3, she's not important. Season 4 rolls around, and she's the main character. And it doesn't feel like, oh my god, why is this character suddenly the main character? Why is it's come out of left field? Because they planted the seeds, and they knew that they wanted to use her, so they got a really good voice actress for her. They designed a character. They went, this is the character we're going to use, but we don't need her until season 4. So like, this is what I mean. Like, knowing where you're going is so important, and knowing how you're going to end. Yeah, this is a good topic because this is something that I think people don't think about enough when they write, including myself. Like, I wrote a short film that I think turned out really well, but at the beginning I was really struggling with, and it's because I was writing it from beginning to end, and I just was not considering. From end. It's about end to end. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, actually.
Yeah, and so it's like, because I have a problem where when I write, I have a scene. Oh, I have this beautiful scene. All right, how do I get there? What happens after? That's my problem, is I think of scenes and I'm like, oh my god, that was a great like conversation between two characters.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I get there? How do I get to this emotional? I need to pay off this emotionally. How do I get there? And what do I do afterwards?
Yeah.
That's always been my problem, is I'm like, I'm not good at beginnings. I'm not good at endings, but I can write the shit out of a middle.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it is like, you know, usually when you do figure it out, that scene that scene will make it in, and it will be a good moment, but not until you've figured out why it belongs there. You know, you can't just rely on a good scene followed by another good scene followed by another good scene. Like, let me use Blade Runner 2049 for example, because I feel like I want people to know how much I love this movie, just because I don't think it should exist. Like, that's such a harsh comment to say to a movie. Ryan Gosling's character, who, by the way, shout out to Ryan Gosling, he is so good. He does not get enough credit. I know he gets a lot of credit. I feel like he doesn't get enough.
Yeah.
He is static, is how I could describe him for a lot of this movie. And it's intentional. He's not like static as in like, oh, it was terrible, he didn't have any emotion. He's supposed to be static. He's playing a character who is very reserved and very, very super, super reserved, right? When you watch the movie, you're like, this is weird. I don't know how I'm going to get on board with this character if he just stops, if he just never shows any sort of, you know, like outwardly emotion. He's just he's keeping it all in. It's clear that he has feelings because you see it in his eyes and you see it in the way that he does things and says things, but he's just keeping it all in. And you're wondering, and you're like, why is he static? But you just kind of put it to the side, and then at some point in the movie he explodes in this one scene, and he does it such a good way. But they knew that he was going to explode. They knew that was coming. So they made the choice to have him be the static character to give that scene more impact. Whereas in a show like The Flash, like, Barry so many times has been like, I'm in a mood now. But because they didn't know that he was going to be in a mood last season, they don't set the tiles, they don't set it up. They don't be like, oh, this feels like this feels like Barry is acting how you would expect him to act after what he's gone through. You just feel like, oh, this week let's roll the fucking die and see what Barry's gonna be.
I think season 3 did a much better job.
Yes, I feel like season 3 was more consistent.
They set up something that they pay off near the end of the season, but that hung over every single conversation and every single interaction. And so the way the characters acted, you're like, well, I know why they're acting that way because of this.
Yeah.
Because of, like, spoiler alert, Iris, whatever, like, they think she's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't seen season 3 of The Flash, just watch it. Like, season 4 is coming out. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. Blade Runner 2049, that just came out. Flash, it's been out for a while.
I think as well, like season 3, I agree that was a compliment I had for the third season, and I think the third season did some good things. Again,
Season 2,
though,
not so much.
yeah, but I will say about season 3 again. Another issue that I had with specifically that season is you still get that we didn't know we were going to go with this way when we started season 3 in the cliffhanger at the end. So the setup for season 4 is that, spoilers again, you should have watched The Flash if you care about The Flash at this point. The setup is
Barry
that
goes into the Speed
he gets trapped
Force.
in the Speed Force, and he willingly does it. He walks in, he goes...
Which
Frustrates me to no end, because
hate.
everything in that season, everything in season 3, like you said, is based around him getting Iris back and wanting to be happy with her. He learnt from the beginning of Flashpoint. You know, in Flashpoint, he learns that even though he's got his family back, what he wants is his life. He wants his regular life with Iris. And then Savitar threatening to take that away is like, no, I don't want to go back to Flashpoint. I want to, like, you know, be back here. I want to be with Iris. I'm content with my life. And then deciding to throw that all away because they wanted a cliffhanger is ridiculous.
Well, and then they immediately threw the cliffhanger away with all the promotion for the next season.
Oh, yeah, where he's back. Oh, great.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? That could have been, you wasted it. You had an idea for a beautiful moment, but you didn't set it up properly. That could have been a beautiful end to Barry's arc. You could have had Wally take over the mantle for a season.
You could have done it in such a good
beautiful
way.
Moment where Barry decides that I need to stop fixing things. I need to stop being so selfish. I need to realize that this is my purpose, whatever. And it could have been this beautiful, touching moment instead of just being tacked on an already emotionally draining season.
Yeah, and it felt like there were many ways in which they could do, for example, a contrast to that. I know we've kind of gotten a little bit off topic, but it's still on topic. A contrast to that, Barry walking into the Speed Force, which I think didn't work. One that I think is a good example of how they did it was Jay walking into the Speed Force. I felt that he, and again, if you're not caught up, I'm not talking about evil Jay.
Yeah.
I felt like the episode where he walks into the Speed Force, it really got me, and I felt tears welling up, because that character, at that point in his life, you could believe that he's like, no, I have done my time. I have been Flash. I've saved people countless times, and it is now, as an old man, it is my purpose to save the next generation. I need to fill this space, and I need to, you know, go through this stuff. I need to step into the Speed Force so that Wally and Barry don't have to, because they still have potential. They still have futures ahead of them. So you feel it, and you go, dude, this is his final act of heroism. This is an old Flash that, especially if you believe what I think the showrunners want you to believe, which is that the old TV show is his history.
No, it's in continuity.
Yeah. So especially if you believe that, and he has all these adventures and with the trickster, is it the trickster?
Trickster, yeah.
Yeah, with the trickster and all the other villains. Like, it's so emotional and it means so much because it makes sense. Whereas then you compare that to Barry's, where it's just like, why? Like, I don't understand. You could have made it believable. You did it with Jay, but no. Oh my god!
That's why you need a roadmap.
Yes, definitely. That's the one thing I will say. I love a roadmap. I don't like seeing it. I don't like seeing where it's going. But when I finished watching it and being like, wow, they had that planned out, that's very satisfying.
Yeah.
I think we kicked this one out of the park.
Yeah, I think
I know.
for just being like, hey, do you want to record a podcast? I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, and I managed not to scream and be way too loud and wake people up, so that's good.
I know. I managed to steal a whole bunch of Greg Miller-isms, but, you know. So I've been watching a lot of Kind of Funny lately, so, like, they're just in my head.
I think, it's always weird to end a podcast, because it is like, you never do that when you're talking with a friend, because this is essentially just me and you talking. We don't get to talk
that's
much
the
otherwise.
whole gimmick.
So it's weird to be like, and now our friendship is on hold.
Yeah, and now we are disconnecting. Boop, 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 boop.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to comment below if you have any suggestions for topics or things that you want us to watch. Obviously, we are also recommending stuff to each other, so there's a pile.
Yeah, and obviously, like, big My Hero Academia fans, big people, if you've seen Blade Runner, comment, like, let us know your opinion. If you're like, Cameron, you're stupid, Blade Runner 2049 was the most deserved sequel we ever needed in our life. Like, comment that.
I
If you're
will.
like, John, My Hero Academia is trash, I'll say, you're a liar, and you don't have good taste. So...
Everyone's opinion is valid, except for ones
Except
that
for that
disagree
one.
with me.
Except for My Hero Academia bad opinions, because there are none.
Thank you for listening. If you want to, I've already said the common stuff. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me, John.
Of course, anytime.
And we shall see you guys maybe next week, maybe the week after,
Hopefully.
but hopefully
see.
sometime in the future.